Welcome to Practicing the Practices. This podcast is all about the journey and process of becoming a disciple of Jesus. Our mission is to curate both a learning and experiential encounter with Jesus. We believe Jesus is our Savior and our teacher, our greatest gift and our greatest example. So here at Practicing the Practices, we not only learn about the way of Jesus, but learn to practice the way of Jesus in our everyday lives. Casey, we're back. Episode 5 of Season 4. We're talking about the critical journey, and we are looking at Stage 4 today.
It's about to get real.
This is the realest of the real.
Yeah.
So to set the stage, I know I've maybe overplayed this metaphor in this story, but it's super fresh for me. As you know, I just got back from spending a week in Africa. We did something really unique on this trip. It was really special. We took this group of village pastors to a very exclusive resort for like this wonderful day of rest, of games, of good meals. We're on a beach side, there's archery, there's all this stuff. And it was so special for this group of men and women because it's something they've really never got a chance to experience before. And it took a while for them to really get into it, but eventually we loved it. Now I want to contrast our time at this wonderful resort. We're relaxed, we're having a great time with the trip home. The day before, there had been about 6 hours of torrential rains, and the roads were pretty bad shape. And it's a Friday, and so we're driving back to where we're staying at, and it's as if all of West Africa converged on this road, and there is this wall of traffic, and we're stuck. We're trying to get back home, but we can't figure out how to get back home. And so our driver takes us off-road. And there's this panic in a lot of our team members who sense of adventure is not super right. Now, some people are really excited, but a lot of people are like, where are we going? And our driver takes us off road. Next thing you know, we're like driving through these villages and there's a group of people following us. And we come up on this bridge and the bridge is washed out. And so we've got a detour around the bridge. And there's this big van in front of us that's stuck in the mud. It's not going anywhere. There's 5 or 6 men trying to push this thing out. And then it's our turn, and we're like all scared to death. Are we gonna have to walk home in like a remote part of Africa? We're just not sure what to do. And our driver hits it. And we eventually get back on the road, seemingly about 30 feet ahead of where we were. We were just stuck. And the detour, the anxiety, not feeling equipped. By the way, we broke down on the detour.
This was quite an adventure.
It was quite an adventure. There, I guess Manchester United won a soccer match, and so we got stuck when like all the fans were out walking in the streets in the middle of the road. It was disorienting. We were like, are we ever going to get to where we're supposed to be? It doesn't seem like it. To me, that's a little bit what it's like in Stage 4. Because the journey inward is an adventure, but it's not necessarily an adventure we all love.
It's definitely off-road in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Not by the book. And I think what I really resonate with what you said is just this fear of getting stuck.
Yeah.
Like if I really go there, if I really ask these hard questions, if I really listen for hard answers, am I just going to get stuck?
Yeah. Facing our doubts seems like a scary thing to do. Like, how can we just stay back here? So that's what we're talking about. So tell us a little bit more about what is known as Stage 4, the journey inward.
Yes. So Stage 4 is the place where, like you just said, the journey inward, our journey has been very outward, very visible on the outside to
Bible
others.
Studies,
yes. It's been a lot of
serving.
doing. Now, all of a sudden, there happens something in us, and they're in the midst of this experience is the wall experience, and we're going to talk at length about that next episode. So we're going to touch on that a little bit, but it is a big part of Stage 4. This is where all of a sudden our questions don't have such easy answers anymore. where all of a sudden we start to doubt or wrestle with things.
Yeah.
And that can feel very scary and very disorienting and very much like I might get stuck. If I go down this road, where's it going to lead me? Because up until this point, we've had a lot of security in our answers, in our certainty, in our knowledge, in our working. And then what happens when all of those things kind of stop working, in a sense, stop working for us?
I think that's confusing for so many and frustrating. And I think there's a parallel in maybe our physical maturity and our spiritual maturity, right? So for those our age,
People of a certain age, certain middle age.
when you want to lose a little weight or get back in shape, it's not as easy as it used to be. Matter of fact, some of the diets you used to use, some of the exercise routines don't seem to work.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like you're having to redo life, relearn restart life. And man, that can be really disorienting. It can be like, what's going on? Like you said, I think the thing for many people, maybe people wired who really want there to be progress, stage 4 can be challenging because you just want things to work.
Yeah. Which is why we're tempted to go back.
Yes.
And go revisit the things that have always worked.
Yeah.
And some people, they just double down and like do all the things they did early in their faith.
I'm going to do Bible study harder this time.
I'm going to double down and really do it. And for a while that might really work. But I think one of the overarching questions of this phase is this it? Is this all there is? It's kind of like a midlife crisis of the soul, like of the spiritual life. Is this it? Is this all there is? What's the point of all this? And I think one of the things, if there's anything I would want people to know and that I've needed to know as I've been in this stage, is that this is progress on the journey. It feels like a huge step back, but it is progress. If we go back to where it felt comfortable and good, we're actually going backward in the journey. We're not moving forward. Eventually, every spiritual journey is going to hit this moment where we ask these hard questions. And it is the Spirit's way of inviting us into deeper knowledge of God, into maybe releasing some of the thoughts that we have about God that are not really true of who we are because of who he is, and about ourselves that are not really true of who we are. And those can get picked up along the way. And so it's really a shedding time of like, who are you really? And what have I thought about you, God, that's actually not really true of who you are?
Social scientists would call this a J curve. So in business, in life, in leadership, you know, you could Harvard Business Review, they've tried to describe this phenomenon kind of using sociological terms. And some people probably haven't realized they've tapped into like a spiritual reality. But our assumption is that there's a way to live life up and to the right. Like how we think the trajectory is going to be like this, up and to the right. But it doesn't matter what it is. There's always the J curve. There's this like little cliff where you fall off. There's this valley. It's the valley is the wall, the valley is the shadow, right? You hit that spot, and they say, you know, it's actually what happens in that spot that determines. It's what you do there in that season that helps you get back on the path. There is no bridge over the J curve. You have to go through the valley. You have to do the inner work.
Yeah.
Now, we're not talking like kind of this psychomalleable, just soul care, but there is this, hey, we actually have to tend to the soul. We have to tend to the mind. God is at work, and here's the thing, Casey. The correction or the transformative process of our outer life is just so much easier than the transformative process of our inner life. And stage 4 is really about the transformative process of the inner life.
This is the get real stage. This is like, you know, early on in, I think our first episode, I said, you know, the wall unmasks us. We're not talking about the wall today, but this stage, we start to get it kind of unmasked, shedding the masks, shedding the shellac that we have over us. And
the white picket fence gets knocked down.
Yeah. So some of the main characteristics, we've talked about a lot of this already, is doubt, grief, silence, and then just a deeper spiritual longing at the same time. A awareness of mystery, awareness of what we don't know. And maybe even one of the fruits of this season can be more of a comfort with mystery. There are some things that we can know, and there are some things that we cannot. And there becomes a little bit more of a comfort with that. Some of the ways you might know you're stuck here or things to watch out for is isolation.
Yeah.
This can pull you away from people. This is where a lot of people leave the church because, like we've mentioned, the church doesn't always really show up well for people in this kind of questioning, doubting, confused kind of state.
Because for many, if I experience you, Casey, as having doubting or asking me a question that feels threatening, oh my goodness, what's wrong with Casey, or what's wrong with me?
Right.
And so that trains us, don't bring your doubts.
Right.
Don't bring your questions.
So I isolate, right? Or I go elsewhere. I go outside the church looking for answers. This is where a lot of people deconstruct in stage 4. It's where a lot of people leave the church. I'm a spiritual director. It's where a lot of people seek spiritual direction.
Yeah.
This is usually when people come to me is they're kind of entering this stage 4 wall place because there's something that spiritual direction offers, which is a safe place to say these things out loud that people might not feel in their church. But our heart is really that people would feel that safety also in our churches. Giving up on faith could be another thing to be really careful for. Just giving up entirely or feeling like you failed.
Yes.
If you hit stage 4 in the wall, we can't say it enough. It is not a sign that you're failing or doing anything wrong. This is an essential part of the spiritual journey. And it means that you're having courage to move forward. So it means in a lot of ways that you're doing something right if you hit this and that you are progressing. So I wish I'd heard that a long time ago.
One of the things that I learned about stage 4 is it reveals that for a significant portion of my Christian life, I really believed in grace, but stage 4 shows me that I was really a believer in grace for others. And in stage 4 is when you really know, oh my goodness, I really need grace. You know, I didn't just need grace like back at conversion, but what's wrong with you, Brad? Why are you such a fill in the blank negative description of yourself? Yeah, that's what I experience a lot in stage 4.
Yeah, and it's really a stripping season. So if I am not what I do or what I know or how I behave anymore, then really what is my faith based on?
Yes.
And if God is not showing up in ways that I expected him to, and if he's not doing the thing I thought he would do, then who is he?
Yeah.
There's just a lot of, it's not a comfortable season.
You once described to me that there's a lot of parallels between stage 4 and stage 1. Like stage 1, there's this awareness, awe, oh my goodness, God is so real. Stage 4, there's a lot of that too, but it's a bit different. It's like, oh, wait a minute. God is God and I'm not.
Yeah.
And he might not operate the way I thought he should operate, which turns out oftentimes we were kind of recreating our own version of God. And in stage 4, he reveals in deeper ways who he really is. And that's not always who we thought he was.
Yeah, it reminds me of Job, right? Job is very pious. Job has done stage 1 through 3.
Crushed it. He
hits this stage 4 and wall moment is kind of what we see in the book of Job is his stage 4 wall moment. And what happens at the end? He comes through into stage 5 and is like, I'm paraphrasing here, but I thought I knew you. I thought I had, but now I've like really seen you.
Yeah.
Because there was an unmasking of Job and his motivations, and there was kind of an unmasking of God.
Yeah.
Not that God has masked himself, but we've put masks on him in a sense.
And Job and God get into it.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
Eventually God says, well, you better put your belt on.
Yeah. It's time.
It's time for you to find out who I really am. But Job does.
So when we think of keep continuing this with Job, I know we didn't talk about this, but it's happening. So let's just go with it. Continuing this theme of Job, when we think about what people need when they're in this wall place or this state, we're talking about stage 4 today, questioning, doubting. Job's friends also give us some insight into what's helpful and what's not helpful.
Job's friends crushed it for 1 week.
Yeah, they were quiet. They just
They
sat
just
with him.
sat with
They
him.
just loved him.
They didn't have to give him answers. They listened.
Yeah.
But their stamina for experiencing Job's hardship was only for a week. And then they started giving Job their feedback, and their feedback was unhelpful.
Right.
So the lesson there, I believe, is, when we say people need a safe space, we're not suggesting that they don't need truth, but actually early on when you're kind of going through your spiritual crisis, what people need is a listening posture more than a let me give all the answers and soothe. Actually giving people permission to wrestle, to live in the tension. And this is so hard for me. Like, I'm wired a bit as a fixer. Let me rephrase that. I'm hardwired in a hardcore way as a fixer to realize actually my job is not to fix all of this for you, but to recognize God is at work in you. I want to be here. I want to listen. I want to be a good guide, but this is your spiritual journey, right?
Yeah.
Job, like you're right. Job's friends, they sat with him quiet. That was awesome. And then they got really opinionated. Not as helpful.
Yeah. I think what we really need when we're in this stage, and we've said the church doesn't necessarily always do a great job with this. So what would a great job look like? Like, how do we show up for people that are in this place? I don't think that, like you said, we go on this whim with them where we just abandon truth, but also we provide a safe space for people to voice their doubts, and we're not like shocked by that. We have to be really aware of our face in moments when, like, what's my facial expression? How am I reacting when someone's telling me that they're doubting, that they're not even sure if God is real, that they thought he was, but now they're wondering? Like, how can we, and it helps if we've gone through this ourselves, but how can we just hold space for that, for lack of a better term, and allow them to have those doubts, allow them to voice them, remind them that God is doing something, and remind them that this doesn't mean that they've done something wrong because they find themselves here.
I think Barnabas in the New Testament's a great example of someone who ministers well in stage 4, right? Yeah. Early on in Paul's conversion, he stands with Paul, he mentors Paul, and then Paul starts to crush it. But Paul's zeal causes him to start to leave people in the dust. And there's this young guy, John Mark, who had a crisis of faith. And he checked out of one of their missionary journeys, and he said, I just can't do it anymore. And for Paul, that was like, all right, I'm moving on. But Barnabas, the guy who didn't move on from Paul, they get in an argument over this.
Yeah.
Because Barnabas is like, there's something about him that says, no, John Mark just need some more time. And so he goes and he picks John Mark up. Now, of course, the beautiful redemptive story is later on, Paul's like, oops, that's on me. Hey, Timothy, would you send John Mark my way? He's super beneficial for my ministry. What he needed was a Barnabas who would just be like, hey, you're where you're at, but you're not going to be there. I think of the Jelly Roll song. I mean, I don't know that we've introduced Jelly Roll to the podcast.
I don't think we have. I think this is a first.
But I love his song, I Am Not Okay, because he's honest about like all of this confusion inside of him, but everything's going to be all right. Like, that's our hope. I am not okay, but I know everything's going to be all right. Like that's the hope. But people need, like you said, space to experience that in stage 4.
I think we need a reminder also that God is already aware of our doubts. I know that in the direction space, when I have people that are maybe frustrated with God, disappointed with God, God's not showing up for them in the way that they wanted him to, there's like such a hesitance to say that to God. And they've been taught maybe that's really disrespectful, or he's God, what can I say? Like, he's going to do what he's going to do. But this is a relationship, and God already knows that you're doubting his goodness. He already knows that you're doubting his love. He already knows that you're wondering if he's even real. So why not just talk to him about it if he already knows it? So I think a lot of people need permission to say to God what feels true in the moment, even though your head can know it's not true. But experientially, it feels true in the moment. And we can talk to God about those things.
So helpful.
So, sharing a little bit about our own journey in stage 4, like I said, this is a place where I have grown to feel very comfortable. And when things in the world get very polarizing, I mean, we find ourselves there right now.
Yeah.
You have to be this or this, black or white. I tend to feel very comfortable in mystery and can kind of get stuck there sometimes instead of, moving forward into obedience and what God's called me to do. This is where I can kind of get stuck because I feel really comfortable here, but I would say that I first started to hit stage 4 when Neil and I, my husband and I, became part of a cohort of other pastors and their wives. We got invited into it. I remember telling Neil, I'm not going to that. That is super woo-woo, which is really funny because I am so woo-woo. But at the time I was like, I don't know what these people are doing. They were doing Lectio Divina. I thought that was really weird. And I was just like, this group feels really odd to me. But I went and I had this like second spiritual awakening, I would say. That's how stage 1 and 4 are kind of similar in that there is an awakening that happens in both. In stage 1, it's the awakening that God is even there and there is a God. Now it's like, oh, kind of like Job. I thought I knew you, but now I've seen you. That happened to me in my like early 30s when I joined this cohort group. And I just remember there were pastors from all different denominations and beliefs, all believers in Jesus, but theological beliefs differed. And I just remember my eyes just were open like, wow, there are more than one way to worship Jesus, the one true God. There are a lot of ways to connect to God that I just, I had put God in such a small, tight box, and that felt really comfortable and safe. Boxes do feel very safe.
Yeah.
Opening up the box feels scary, but then kind of once you open it up, it's like, oh, you can't kind of unopen. You can't shove it all back in. So that really opened my eyes to so many different ways to experience God, connect with God, that people that were very different than me, came from very different backgrounds, loved Jesus as much as I did, and they were his kids too. And it really started me on a trajectory of this kind of more spiritual way of living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to how in stage 1, there's almost this divine interruption. We talked about Paul on the way to Damascus, the light shines. There's this, we hear a gospel message and it's like, or we experience a hardship that moves us towards the Lord. I mean, that's how I probably encountered stage 4 for the first time, probably about 17 years ago. I think it was the birth of my firstborn child that like awakened a lot of uncertainty in me in every area of my life, including my faith. And I went through a real existential crisis of faith where I'm like, man, what do I believe? Why do I believe this? I'm not sure if I'm going to believe this in the end. And one moment in particular stands out is I'm a youth pastor at the time, and I've got like 35 or 40 kids at this youth conference, and there's this great like worship service going on, and everybody's like really like engaged and loving it. Internally, no one, not even my wife, knows that I'm like, there's like this raging war going on inside of me, and I'm feeling so much anxiety. I'm just so lost, and I kind of slip out. Probably everybody thought maybe I just went to the restroom. I actually just went into the hallway to get alone, like that isolation piece. And I was like, man, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even sure I believe this, and I've got all these people here. Like, and it was like the first like major kind of, God, how am I going to experience you? Because all the things that had worked, as you said, didn't seem like they were working anymore. And it was disorienting. You describe yourself as like feeling comfortable in that. I want clarity.
Yeah.
And in a good way, it was the unmasking. It was like in the aftermath of that was like the first time I kind of like just barely gave somebody a peek in and said, and somebody said to me, it might have been my wife, yeah, I can tell. Like you think you're kind of going on it, but yeah, it was really hard.
Wow.
A lot of anguish.
Yeah. That, I mean, I hope that that's, as you're talking, I'm like, I hope that this is really like comforting for people to hear this. Like everybody goes through this.
Yeah.
And when you're a person that's, working in ministry and serving the Lord, like what really stood out to me about what you said was just that feeling of like almost shame, like, how am I possibly leading people? And I don't even
feel
know.
like a hypocrite.
I don't even know what I believe. We all experience this. And it took a lot of courage to admit that to yourself, especially when you are leading kids and in a conference. And there is just a lot of courage to kind of initially step into this season. Like, is this okay? Am I going to be okay if I step into it? But there is really a lot of goodness that the Spirit teaches us in this moment. So, how do you think we can see God in this? We want to talk about how we can see God, ourselves, and others, and show empathy to others that are in this stage.
The phrase that comes to mind is God. If God is God, he gets to be God. For me, stage 4 is about coming to terms with who God is on God's terms and not my own terms.
Yeah.
I wasn't conscious of this, but I think oftentimes we start to craft our image and imagination of who God is, what God should be like, how he should react to us. And in stage 4, you kind of have this, oh my goodness, I'm actually oftentimes been the one playing God and dictating to God how he should act, how he should reveal himself, how he should work, how he should speak to me, how this part of my life should go. Stage 4 is, oh, wait a minute. If God is God, if there's a God, he gets to be God. And he reveals himself to you in stage 4 in loving ways, but the love comes to us sometimes in some undoing ways. He presents himself, and you realize, and here's something that actually strengthened my faith. You realize, oh, wait a minute, the mysterious, I don't understand that about God, actually means God is so much bigger than you thought he was. And he's actually big enough to create the universe, to rescue you, like to actually hold you up. Once you're in the process, it's a hard thing, but it becomes a beautiful thing, because the God that you can't fully grasp is actually a holy, powerful, majestic God.
Yeah. You know what that reminds me of, and I've probably talked about this on the podcast before, because this analogy is so helpful to me, is like the blind men that are touching an elephant. And one blind man is like touching the trunk of the elephant, and he's like, this is what an elephant is. And one is touching the tail and it said, this is what an elephant is. And one has their hand on the side of the elephant and is saying, this is what an elephant is. And they're all right and they're all wrong. And that's, to me, what it looks like for our image of God. Like, we start off in stage 2, especially, like, this is what God is. He's this, he's in this box. This is how I relate to him. This is how he relates to me. But we're only, he is vast, way more vast than an elephant. And we're only touching one piece of who he is. And we will never fully understand the depths of that until we're in heaven with him one day. But in the meantime, it requires humility to be like, maybe there's more of this elephant that because I'm blind and I only have so much to go by. Like, maybe this guy's also right about some of the things, and maybe we can kind of work together to figure out.
That, I think originated maybe in India, that proverb. The original meaning was to say, hey, look, this can be all sorts of different things to different people, but the perspective that we have is only the perspective in front of us. The divine perspective sees it all. And in stage 4, you encounter the God that sees it all. God becomes big, and that's a good thing. And as you referenced, the grace you experience in stage 4, I think is very similar to the grace you experience in stage 1. And you're like, oh my goodness, thank God. I actually need this God right here.
I think the other thing, you kind of just touched on it, that we really learn about God is that he is okay with our doubts. He has grace and mercy for us when we doubt. And he is not going to shun us or turn away from us or get mad at us because we have doubts. He knows that we will.
We are insecure. He is not.
Right. So what we learn about ourselves we learn a lot about ourselves. I think we learn a lot more about our true, deepest identity. Maybe might be a time when people start therapy or counseling because we're starting to really dig into some hard things in our, maybe our emotional life or our personal life. It takes a lot of courage to really face these questions about ourselves. Like, who am I? Like, what am I really all about? I thought that I figured that out when I started serving and using my gifts and all this, but man, like that's not working anymore. Who am I really? Why am I really following God? That was a question that I answered a lot during my stage 4 and specifically in my wall seasons is like, why am I still here? I think that's such an important question for like, why do I still follow Jesus and why do I still believe? It's almost like the disciples, like where else would we go? Because when God's not doing what you want him to do, like there really is a question, well, okay, what keeps me here? What is it really about God that draws me to stay even when I'm disappointed or frustrated or questioning? So I think we learn that about ourselves, like what our faith is really rooted in. And I think we learn kind of our own depths, really. We start to learn our own depths. So we've talked a little bit about how we can show empathy to people in stage 4. I think this one is really important for this. How can we, Brad, show up? We've talked a little bit about it already, but show up for people in stage 4.
I once heard a really smart thinker say regarding when people are experiencing doubts, when they're having that kind of existential crisis, particularly young people, they said, hey, doubt, questions are not toxic to your faith. What is toxic to your faith is unexpressed doubts and questions. When we create environments, sometimes unintentionally, where people don't feel that they can question something, wrestle with something, not be sure about something, that actually trains them to stuff the doubts down, to not really press into what's going on. It shuts the transformative process down. So I think one of the most important things we can do in how we see other people is to remember that the process of spiritual maturity is indeed a process. If we obsess too much on the outcome, that reveals something about us, that we think we have some sort of ability to dictate and change the outcome, when actually what we've been invited into is faithfulness, the journey. God is the one who's in charge of the outcome. And so if we can become a little less anxious about what the outcome's going to be and meet people in their process, be people who are willing to absorb, hold those questions, not be super anxious about what's going on. But also, here's a way we might be able to give, if we can give ourselves grace in this one area, it'll allow us to give others grace. If we can become more comfortable with this phrase, I don't know. Brad, why does God fill in the blank? Honestly, I'm not sure I understand either. Like that can be one of the most powerful things for somebody in stage 4 to hear.
Yeah, comforting, because we're not trying to fix them or wrap it all up with a little bow, because that feels really trite in this season in somebody's life. And it's okay to say, that's really hard. And that's a really great question. And I'll be with you as you wrestle with that. I love the story of Jacob wrestling with God in the Bible. And I love his tenacity. I love when he's wrestling all night long. And then, he gets touched on the hip and he still is like wrestling, and he says, I'm not letting go till you bless me. And to me, that's a picture of this season. Like, I'm going to just hang on to you, God. And I'm going to stay in the wrestle. I'm not going to leave the wrestle. And I'm going to just stay in it and hold on to you until you bless me. And I might be walking with a little bit of a limp afterwards. And that's okay. Because we don't come out of this experience the same way we were before.
It's Samwise Gamgee and Frodo. Like, Frodo's a mess, and Samwise so brilliantly says to him, I can't carry the ring. Like, that ring is only for you to carry, but I can carry you. It was like, I can't take that thing that you're wrestling with away, but I can be with you in the wrestle. And that's a powerful thing.
Yeah. So as always, want to give just a few moments of reflection and a moment to kind of connect with maybe a time where we've experienced this, or maybe we're experiencing it now. So close your eyes with me and take a moment to settle in. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths. And just start to consider, when was the last time that I had a significant doubt or experienced spiritual dryness? And maybe, how did God meet me in that place? Or maybe the truth is, I don't feel like he met me in that place. Maybe talk to him about that. Just take a moment to ask God to show you, where is he inviting you to embrace mystery instead of seeking certainty? Is there even a certain situation in your life where he's inviting you to embrace the I'm not sure, instead of having to have all the answers figured out and tied up with a bow? God, we confess that you are so much bigger than we could ever imagine, and we want to put you in boxes because of that, because it feels safe to us to have some boundaries around who you are that we can understand. Thank you for the ways that you do reveal yourself. Thank you for the things that are knowable about you. And also thank you for the grace to be okay with the mystery about the things that are in your character that we can't quite understand. I pray that you would continue to give us the courage to embrace both truth and mystery, and the tension there between those two things. And as we doubt, can we be honest with you and honest with others? And can you bring people into our lives that feel safe to share those doubts with? Thank you for being safe to share those doubts with. Thank you for not leaving us or abandoning us when our faith is shaky, and that you are steadfast and you are loving and kind and merciful to us in these moments that feel really disorienting and hard. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Casey, one of the things that has been so helpful for me in Stage 4 that we want to encourage those watching on YouTube, those listening, Stage 4 is a really good time to practice the art of journaling.
Yes.
For a couple of reasons. One is we oftentimes need to find a way to take what's on the inside and kind of bring it to the outside. Mm-hmm. I've got about 3 journals on a bookshelf at my house. Most of them at the very top of the page says, Lord, I need your help today. And then there is this I really don't want a lot of people to read this. Honest, here's where I'm struggling.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing is if I go back and read some of those, I can see where I was and where the Lord was taking me. Mm-hmm. So we want to encourage people to practice what I think you could argue that David was practicing. We can read a lot about David's life in 1st and 2nd Samuel and, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, but you can read a lot about what David was journaling to the Lord in the Psalms. And so write these things down. Be honest with God about where you're at. And I think another practice is find a couple of trusted people and maybe give them a peek. Find somebody who's walking with the Spirit, someone who's not super opinionated, who's a good listener, who cares about you, and maybe invite them into where you're at.
Yeah, those are good. 2 really good tangible action steps to have to really invite people into your wrestle and show up for your wrestle and stay in it instead of running from it.
Absolutely. Well, on our next episode, we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into that thing called the wall, what it looks like to be stuck, and how to get through it. So until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, follow, share it with someone. Casey, as always, so good to chat with you.
You too, Brad. See you next time.